You know, they say youth is wasted on the young, but I think that romance might be too. We spend our 20s looking for lightning bolts, only to realize in our 60s that we actually just wanted a sturdy roof and someone who knows how to fix a leaky faucet. The clock just struck 12. The house is finally quiet, and it's just you and me. Welcome to Kalen After Midnight. I'm Kalen, and tonight I want to talk to you about the things we think we've outgrown. Tonight's story is a bit of a personal one. It's about the time I decided to jump back into the deep end of the dating pool at 64 years old. I thought I was looking for a partner, but what I found was a Lion King in a bar, a man who was terrified of running out of emojis, and eventually a 1998 Camry that changed everything. So pour yourself something warm, tuck the covers in, and let's talk about why it's never too late to start a new chapter. They say that the dating game is a numbers game. At 64, let's be honest, those numbers are mostly my blood pressure, my cholesterol, and the 3-mile radius I'm willing to drive after 8 p.m. Anything past the local supermarket might as well be considered a cross-country road trip. I thought I was retired from love. I had hung up my jersey years ago. My team consisted of a sourdough starter that was more demanding than any boyfriend I had ever had, and a Netflix account that regularly asked me, "Are you still watching?" with a tone that I found increasingly judgmental. But apparently, the universe had other plans for me, and they involved a targeted ad, a glass of Chardonnay, and an app called Silver and Sassy. Now, the name alone should have been a big enough red flag. Silver and Sassy sounds like a line of orthopedic glitter shoes, or maybe a discount hair dye. But there I was, midway in the glass of Chardonnay, uploading a photo where I looked approachable, which is really just code for I found a photo where I'm not holding my cat. The learning curve was vertical, friends. I'm from the generation where swiping was something you did to a dusty bookshelf. On my second day, I accidentally super liked a guy named Gary. I didn't mean to super like him. I actually thought I was zooming in to see if he had all his own teeth. Turns out he did. Unfortunately, they belonged to his ex-wife, who was visible in the background of his profile picture, looking like she was mid-argument with him. Gary wore socks with sandals in every photo, even the one at the beach. Now that's a level of commitment to comfort that I almost respected. Yeah, but not enough to actually date him. After a week of matching with men who looked like they were hiding from the witness protection program, I agreed to meet Ron. We met at a coffee shop. I chose it because it was directly next to Walgreens. My logic here was simple. If the date went well, I could buy some gum. If it went poorly, I could fake a migraine and be at the pharmacy counter in 30 seconds flat. Ron spent the first 20 minutes talking about his hip replacement. He didn't just mention it. He narrated it like a Discovery Channel special. I knew more about his titanium screws than I knew about my own retirement fund. While he was explaining the mechanics of physical therapy, I spent the first was 10 minutes trying to remember if I'd turned my stove off before I left home. Then I spent another 5 minutes wondering if my date outfit, a linen tunic that I thought said classy artist, actually said, I've given up, and this is basically a fancy nightgown. Dating in your 60s is basically just two people interviewing each other to see who has the better health insurance and whose kids are less annoying. It's a background check with decaf lattes. Ron ended the date by asking if I had any spare ibuprofen. I gave him two and told him I had to go home to rotate my sourdough. But the medical exam was nothing compared to Kevin. Kevin's profile said he was an active artist with a flair for the dramatic. I thought, great. Maybe he paints landscapes or does pottery. We agreed to meet for a quick drink near the theater district. He told me he'd be coming straight from work and might still be in his uniform. I figured security guard, maybe a pilot. I'm sitting at the bar checking my lipstick in a spoon when the door swings open. In walks a man in full professional stage makeup. And I don't mean a little eyeliner. I mean, he was a lion. He was wearing a full headpiece and mane from the Lion King. Yeah. He sat down, ordered a scotch, and said, "You look just like your pictures." I spent 45 minutes talking to a man who looked like he belonged on the Serengeti. The worst part? He stayed in character the whole time. When the waiter brought the bill, Kevin actually let out a little roar. Yeah, I didn't stick around for the encore. I told him I had a pride of my own to get home to, and I practically ran to my car. Yeah. Then there was Howard. Howard was tech savvy, or so his bio claimed. Our entire first date was basically me becoming his unpaid IT consultant. He was terrified that he was running out of emojis. Yeah, you heard that right. Emojis. I spent 20 minutes explaining that emojis are a renewable resource. He wasn't looking for a girlfriend. He was looking for someone to help him find where he hid his internet in the cloud. Yeah. I even tried an active date with a man named Larry, who claimed to be an expert windsurfer at 65. I thought the core strength on this man must be incredible. It took exactly 3 seconds to realize Larry had never seen a windsurf board in his life. Within 10 minutes, a gust of wind caught his sail, and he was headed toward the horizon, screaming instructions at me that sounded like he was reciting a grocery list. I had to call the Coast Guard. There is nothing quite as humbling as watching your first date get towed back to shore by a 19-year-old in a uniform, while Larry tried to maintain his dignity by claiming he was just testing the current. Yeah. So I was ready to delete the app. I had had enough. I had my finger over the icon, ready to send Silver and Sassy into the digital abyss, when a message popped up. "Hi, I see you like 70s folk music. Do you think Joni Mitchell is the greatest songwriter of our times? Or are you wrong? It was from Arthur. Arthur didn't have a photo of himself catching a fish or pretending to be a lion. He had a photo of a very scruffy, very orange dog named Toast. Yeah, you heard that right, Toast. We met on a Tuesday at 4:30 p.m. because we both value a good night's sleep. He pulled up in a 1998 Toyota Camry. It wasn't just a car. Yeah, it was a time capsule. It was pristine. It smelled like peppermint and old maps. The spark wasn't a lightning bolt. When you're 64, you don't even want a lightning bolt. That's how you end up in ER. The spark was more like a warm radiator on a cold night. It was steady. It was quiet. A few weeks later, we had the big date. He didn't take me to a fancy steakhouse where the music is so loud you have to yell your order. We drove to the local garden center. We spent 45 minutes debating the merits of cedar mulch versus hemlock. We walked through the aisles of perennials like we were touring the Louvre. He held my hand, a hand that has seen marriages, children, and decades of hard work. And he squeezed it when I found a particularly healthy-looking fern. He didn't ride off into the sunset. We drove back to my place in the Camry, the trunk full of dirt, and Toast panting in the back seat. And honestly, it was the most romantic thing that's happened to me in 20 years. So, if you're sitting there at your kitchen table, looking at your sourdough, and then over at your cat, thinking your heart has a closed for maintenance sign on it, just remember, even a vintage car runs like a dream if you find the right mechanic. Or at least someone who remembers the lyrics to the songs you love. And that, my friends, is the thing about life. Whether you're 24 or 64, the story is never really over until the lights go out. So if you're sitting there in the dark, wondering if your best days are behind you, just remember Arthur and his 1998 Camry. Sometimes the most beautiful chapters aren't written in lightning bolts and grand gestures. They're written in the quiet moments, the shared songs, and yes, even the mulch. The moral of this story is, your heart doesn't have an expiration date. It just needs the right person to help you find the keys. I'm Kalen, and this has been Kalen After Midnight. Go easy on yourself tonight. Keep the coffee warm, the memories closer, and sleep well.